Good, happy Sunday afternoon, everyone. I'm Riley King, and welcome to Politics with Riley King. Let's begin. Kennebunkport, Maine mourns Bush, who spent his summers there. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Siobhan Lopez.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England.
To lose the president is the passing of an era.
A growing memorial overlooks Walker's Point in Kennebunkport, Maine, the longtime summer home for the Bush family, where the flag now flies at half-staff in honor of former President George H.W. Bush.
We always love having him here in the summer, look forward to him coming, and it's been years and years that we've experienced that, and we've lost that now, so we're very sad.
His first summer in Maine without his beloved wife Barbara since their wedding would be his last.
We were pleased that we had him all summer. It was wonderful, and I'm happy that he was able to be here for his granddaughter's wedding.
This community still mourning the death of the former First Lady.
She was well loved around here, and of course, all the help she's given the community with the medical centers and everything else. Their legacy will live on.
In the summertime, it was never uncommon to run into the Bush family in town at a store or restaurant.
People in the town down here would love to see him and Barbara come by. He'd always bring in his security detail and introduce them as his colleague. He missed one summer in his entire life of 94 years, and that was when he was in the war.
Veterans reflect on the significance of the 41st president.
It's very sad. He was our last war veteran president, and we will all miss him, particularly here in Kennebunkport, where he has a long history.
A man remembered as a neighbor and friend and president who knew the true meaning of public service.
He left behind, I think, a wonderful legacy. Much love down here. We'll miss him.
It'll always be a special place, and with the other Bush family members coming, it always makes it special here.
In Kennebunkport, Maine, Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. New Hampshire friends remember Bush as man who gave to this country his fullest. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Adam Sexton.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England.
In his visits as a candidate, a vice president, and a president, George H.W. Bush forged a lifetime connection to the Granite State. As America mourns the passing of its 41st president, Bush's former chief of staff, Governor John H. Sununu, says from the front lines of World War II to the White House, it's hard to imagine there will be another leader with such an extensive record of serving his country.
He had a great history of service, but as president in particular, I think he had a huge impact on the world.
Even though President Bush had been in failing health, Sununu says the enormity of this loss is still deeply felt.
No matter how much you anticipate it's imminent, when it does happen, it really does hit you.
When Governor Sununu joined the new administration in 1989, he brought his family with him. The current governor, Chris Sununu, remembers President Bush always cared how he was doing.
We were a bit uprooted, right? We had moved down to Washington, my younger brother and myself and my parents, and I think he, whenever we saw him, he was always very good about taking a moment and coming aside and saying, hey, how's it going?
It's a common refrain. Joel Mayola, future chief of staff to Senator Judd Gregg, volunteered for the Bush 1980 presidential campaign as a college student.
And he would ask about my classes. He would want to know what's happening in my life, and was truly inspirational to have somebody that was running for president be so friendly.
As it is for any president, New Hampshire was a proving ground for Bush. He came here to the Scammon Farm in Stratham, running for re-election in 1992.
The whole road was backed up with buses and the press and people, and it was just an amazing experience.
The Scammons say even with all the trappings of presidential power, Bush was still the same kind man they had always known.
He was truly a person who did and gave to this country his fullest.
Adam Sexton, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. '88 New Hampshire win helped catapult George H.W. Bush to the White House. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Tom Griffith.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England-made products.
While the rest and relaxation of Kennebunkport were never far away, when George H.W. Bush was in New Hampshire, he was in the arena, famously upstaged here by Ronald Reagan in the 1980 primary. As Vice President, Bush made the most of his visits to the Granite State, showing the fire needed to lead the free world.
It is the sacred duty of the United States of America to defend freedom, to protect the lives of Americans around the world, to protect the innocent.
Bush filed for the 1988 primary with a ceremony in the Hall of Flags, getting the endorsement of Red Sox great Ted Williams.
I'm very happy to be on this team.
After losing Iowa, Bush needed a win here and turned to Governor John Sununu for help as the polls tightened.
Just a few weeks ago, you were really way ahead, and now it seems that the gap is narrowed, things are tighter. What happened?
1980 revisited. Remember when I came blowing into here and the polls shot down for Ronald Reagan? Turned it right around here and beat me. That's what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to win New Hampshire when I lost Iowa.
I want to thank the wonderful people of New Hampshire.
And when he did, New Hampshire setting Bush on the path to the White House.
I think you just don't like being told what to do. And I think you listen.
We had a great candidate, a candidate who got his message out, a candidate who engaged certainly with his nearest rival, made it very clear what the difference was, and what I think are the most discriminating voters in the country did a little comparison shopping between the two of them and decided George Bush was head and shoulders above him.
As president, Bush would name Sununu his chief of staff and turn to the Granite State for a Supreme Court justice. But the White House was to be his for only one term, as recession-ravaged New Hampshire gave rise to challenges from both the right and left. Bush would return to New Hampshire late in the 2000 primary campaign to give a boost to his son.
Thank you very, very much. Thanks. Thank you, guys. What a great New Hampshire welcome for our boy. Hey. To say that Barbara and I are thrilled to be here is the understatement of the year.
Mr. President, what does it mean to sort of be here in New Hampshire, your old stomping grounds here, doing it for your son?
Well, it means that it's very emotional for a father and a mother to see this boy out there doing well.
A proud dad, a World War II veteran who dedicated his life to serving his country, a winner of the New Hampshire primary.
I think you listen and you judge and you decide, and then you do what's right, and I'll never forget it.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Many say Bush considered Walker's Point their true home. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Tom Griffith.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England.
It's beautiful. It's probably the most photographed spot in all of Kennebunkport.
Pick any summer day, it's rare not to find huge crowds stopping to get a glimpse or snap photos of Walker's Point, a picturesque outcropping owned by the Bush family since the 1870s when purchased by President George H.W.'s great-great-grandfather.
David Davis Walker built the first very large mansion closest to the road. And then George Herbert built the very large house at the end that's still there today.
On several occasions since then, Walker's Point has gone up for sale, but in each case, a member of the Bush family has stepped in to buy it. The latest, George H.W., who has owned it now since the 1970s. But then in the 80s, when Mr. Bush became president, that is when Walker's Point, and Kennebunkport for that matter, were essentially put on the map.
When President Bush was president here, it definitely made things a little bit harder to get around. Not terrible, but you knew that somebody important was here.
Throughout Bush 41's presidency, then followed by his son, number 43, the Summer White House, as it has become known, hosted many of the world's most important people, presidents, prime ministers, queens. But the next night, it might be just one of the neighbors or a community fundraiser.
One of the classic things that we always joked about over the years where the Bushes were so gracious and generous to invite anybody who happened to be in town or on the property or a friend of a friend to dinner.
Steve Kingston owns the local clam shack, often delivering or helping prepare seafood for all sorts of occasions.
It was a classic thing that 41 would always do, is add a few more people, and so he'd constantly be calling me saying, "Can you bring this out to the house?"
Oh, how lucky are we that we live in a place and have this genuine American hero living right on the point, and he opens his house to the public. It really is fantastic.
And for those who've seen the inside, they say the house itself is every bit as inviting as the Bushes themselves. Nothing opulent, but very cozy, comfortable.
It's a family home, and it's a summer home, and it still has that bright, easy, breezy feel to it.
It's grand in some rooms, but it has more of a cottage feel. But the dining area in the living room reminds me of just a very humble beach cottage.
It might be the most public-private residence in town. Years now since either Bush was president, people continue to flock to the scenic point, if for nothing else, a quick glance at history.
So where in the United States does this happen? So it has changed a lot about Kennebunkport, but I honestly do feel it's for the best.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Giving, caring, George H.W. Bush family committed to philanthropy. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Amy Cavino.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England.
The test we face is great, and so are the stakes.
George Bush and the Bush family have left an indelible mark on southern Maine. Physically, financially, philanthropically, those who knew and worked with the Bushes agree their contributions are immeasurable.
I think that the Bush family, from President Bush on down, they're just a very giving, caring family. They're very engaged in the life and the future, I think, of Maine and of the country.
The Bush name adorns a number of prominent Maine buildings, but only the University of New England's George and Barbara Bush Center commemorate the former president and his wife together, dedicated not to their political work, rather their enthusiasm and devotion to the local community.
Their engagement here, I think it's the kind of people they are. They were not people to sit back and be entertained.
On the contrary, in the years following his presidency, George Bush became a tireless fundraiser, lending not just his name, but his time, invaluable to the numerous projects he supported. Among them, the Emergency Center at Biddeford Southern Maine Health Center, named for his mother, Dorothy Walker Bush.
We had wonderful receptions in people's homes, fundraisers, and the Bushes were always right there. They were always very sociable. They were always very supportive of us. Just wonderful memories of spending time with them.
Autograph my Ranger hat for me.
Nowhere in recent years was George Bush more visible than the annual celebrity golf tournament, which bears his name in Arundel, a fundraiser for Mercy Hospital's Gary's House in Portland, which allows the families of hospitalized patients a comfortable and inexpensive place to stay.
Whether it be playing in the tournament or attending the dinner the night before, donating auction items to help us raise additional funds. They've gone above and beyond just lending their name.
You know, every time we serve a family here, I'm mindful that, you know, they're really experiencing an aspect of the Bush's hospitality.
If there's a common denominator among those who've worked with President Bush and his family, they say it's their enduring generosity. In what essentially is their second home, the Bushes have helped raise millions of dollars in one way or another, touching the lives of thousands of Mainers.
They could have come and ridden around in their boats or sat in on their deck or looked at their garden, and they're not those kinds of people. They're very engaged in the life and the future, I think, of Maine and of the country.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. After presidency, George H.W. Bush left his mark on Maine. Let's take a listen to the video from WMUR News 9, Siobhan Lopez.
Get jingly at the Made in New England Expo. Experience the incredible array of New England.
This is truly a loss for this town, the state of Maine, and all of New England. This has been such a special place for such a long time for anyone who wanted to come just for the chance to catch a glimpse of the Bush family, for those who were able to interact with them down in town, and especially those who benefited from the family's generosity. Here at Walker's Point, it had been the summer home of the Bush family for years. George H.W. Bush could be seen around town eating in local restaurants, playing golf, and fishing from his boat. But he was not just a former president. He was a friend and neighbor to a lot of people here. Many recall how important it was for him to come here and be on the ocean, but also how he made it a priority to give back to the community with his wife, Barbara. The couple spearheaded numerous fundraising projects for a variety of organizations. Their projects include hospitals, a college library, even a golf tournament, which bears the Bush name.
And when you've got somebody of the stature of President and Mrs. Bush recognizing the importance of the project, being willing to go out there and participate in these fundraising, and the benefit of that is extraordinary.
I have a lot of admiration for the Bush family because they have exemplified the importance of giving, the effect that it can have on other people, how it can help other people, probably in ways and at times that they have no idea.
The nation, and specifically this community here in Maine, was just getting over mourning the loss of George H.W. Bush's wife, Barbara, and now the former president. Truly the end of an era here in Kennebunkport, and something that they will never forget. We're live in Kennebunkport, Maine this morning. Siobhan Lopez, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Top House Internal Committee, Dem says Trump and his business were compromised. Rep. Adam Schiffer, the leading Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, said that there is now a witness in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. President Donald Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, who Schiffer said confirms that the president and his business are compromised. And later this week, George H.W. Bush's funeral will be held later this week. And once we hear what day it is, we will let you know, and we will have coverage of that day. And we are hearing it will be December 5th as a national day of mourning, adding that the Trump would attend his funeral. And that does it for this edition of Politics with Riley King. I hope you all enjoyed this edition of Politics with Riley King, and I'll see you back here next Sunday for another edition of Politics with Riley King. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everyone, and have a great day, and have a great week as well. Goodbye.